Hey everybody, thought I'd share something. This morning I was, let's see, we got a snowstorm just piddled out here. We didn't get nothing out of it, but everybody was running around like nuts with 2-foot predictions and all that, and it fizzled here. A little further north from us, they got close to 30 inches, I guess, up in Tannersville, but that's about 20 miles away, 30 miles away. Anyhow, I was pedaling around this morning and happened to check my Facebook page and look at some other stuff, and saw Hoppy Quick was doing a little Facebook live stream. Hoppy's like me, except maybe a little bit worse in the technology category, and he'd be the first to admit that, I'm sure, so I've heard him do it. But he does do some morning live streams. For those of you that don't know Hoppy, he lives over this way, maybe about 10-15 miles up in the Olive Bridge area in town of Rochester, and he's a carver. A lot of folks think he's a chainsaw carver, which he is, and he's one of the best, but he's also a carver. He makes some beautiful spoons and all kinds of things, walking sticks, and he's known as the Catskill Mountain Woodsman. He has a business page over on Facebook, but his personal page lately, he's been doing these little live streams every once in a while when he's around. He's got a big teepee in his yard, up at his property. It's probably about, I don't know, I would say those poles are tied together about 25 feet off the ground, maybe a little more. And it's got to be about a 25-foot diameter where it hits the ground. It's a big teepee, and he does his carving in there and his finish work. He's got a campfire in the middle. He runs all day long, and he just turns on his camera and chats with his friends and shows you what he's working on. Talks about some of his philosophy. He's a great guy. I first met him when he was about 14 years old, and lost touch for a lot of years. And now here we are 40-something years later, and I've reacquainted myself with him lately. One of these days I'll swing up to his teepee and sit down with him for a while. But for now, we just cross paths once in a while at Ted's or wherever. Anyway, he got me thinking, and I thought, you know, I get a lot of people asking me questions about how I make stuff, and let's be clear from the outset here, I am not a woodworking craftsman. I'm more of a hacker that's just got a lot of patience and persistence, and I just keep working at it until I figure it out, and do it over and do it over as many times as I need until I'm happy with the way it looks. But some of my stuff does come out pretty nice, and some people actually ask me to make special pieces just for them. This thing I'm leaning on is one of those things. This is going to be a bar. I know bars are usually horizontal, so you can stand drinks and such on them, but I am beginning the finish round on this bar. This piece of wood's been in my shop for close to 3 years now. It's sat on a roller table for a long time. I cut this tree, I just thought of this, never made the connection. I cut this tree probably about 3 miles away from Hoppy's property over in Kerhonkson with the landowner, and we worked on it together. It was a big double-stemmed ash, and it was probably, I want to guess, somewhere around 40 inches on the stump in diameter when it came down. And that's why the landowner asked me for a little help with a bigger chainsaw and a bigger bar, and two of us putting our brains together to get it down safely without damaging anything. This piece was milled off of one half of the the butt of the tree. As a matter of fact, I'll show you in a minute. It's still got the notch. You know, when we fell a tree, we put a directional notch in the front of the tree, and that notch cut is still on this piece of wood. I got a couple of the short pieces as a gift for the landowner and brought them home and milled some of them up. I still have one more piece that's laying on the mill bed now. Here we are 3 years later, and I just put it up 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to take some more slabs off of that. But this piece came right from where the two trunks of the tree came together. This whole thing, I'll show you a little better in a minute, give you the tour, was where the two trees kind of started to separate and didn't really meld together. They were separate trees at that point, and they spread out. And when the tree fell, I took it down as one tree because there was the stump, which was huge, as I said, and then it went up maybe 5-6 feet before it started to split. And I thought if I went down low enough, it would all fall as one tree, and we laid it flat on the Y so that it wouldn't bust too badly when it hit. And that also put it right where we needed it so it wouldn't damage any other trees in the area. Well, what happened was when I did the felling cut and then I put in the back cut and we sent it, as soon as that tree started going over, the two pieces of Y split. One landed exactly right on the money where we wanted it, and the other one went 30 degrees too far to the south and did not wind up where we wanted it. But as it turned out, we didn't hurt anything, we didn't break any other trees, so we had a good laugh out of that. But most bowlers will tell you, anytime you got a split trunk, you treat it as two trees. But this one was so far up where the split was that I just couldn't get up there to cut it safely. So took it as one, and that's what we wound up with. Anyway, I got this slab. It sat in the shop. When I milled it up, I thought, sat outside for a while, maybe 2-3 months, and then I brought it in for the winter that year. And one of my clients, one of my best clients, saw it and said, "What are you going to do with that?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I think I might make a bar or a table or something out of it." And he said, "Well, I'd love to have a bar made out of that. That'll be beautiful." So that was a while ago, maybe over a year and a half. He's a patient fella. If you're my client, you got to be patient. And you know, we hemmed and hawed about what we're going to do for legs and how it's going to look, and you know, plans developed, and I started to do some epoxy pours on it because this is, you'll see in a minute, this is all one big cavity. So I started to pour in there when I was doing other jobs, and I had epoxy left over. I did some dye work in here. And you'll get to see this. I think I'll follow this through just so that folks can see how ugly it is now and how it comes out at the end, and hopefully it'll be a lot less ugly at the end than it is now. But so I've been working on it, and now I'm just we finally hit the point where we got a plan, and I've got a little bit of room in the work schedule, and it's still winter time, so time to get going on this and really do some of the tough stuff. So let me grab the camera there and give you a little tour of this piece of wood, and then we'll talk about what I'm going to do today. So here's a better shot. You know, I'm going to have to pan because if I turn the camera, everything will flip and you won't see anything. It's this section over here. This was the main trunk of the tree going up. This was, the stump was this way. So this was my felling cut. This was the front notch on the tree, so you get a better idea of how that looked. And when I milled this, let's take a look at the back side first. Mine's a little easier to see. So this shows, this is live edge here, So that shows you where the outside of the diameter of the tree was. I took a squaring cut that didn't clean the whole log up. It fades out right there. It's back into the bark, but up here it's starting to show a flat, and that flat gets wider as you go down. The other side I cut square, and you can really barely see that now. See this line here? Well, that's where I put the shot glass shelf that goes on the back edge of the bar. So this would be the bartender side of the bar. There's a shot glass shelf with a little cup rail on there to keep the stuff in there, and you put your glass mats in there, bar mats, and the shelf is off the same tree, another piece of ash. So is the trim work that I did to cover it up. This is mortise, so that the bottom of the shelf is exactly the same level as the bottom of the bar, and it overlaps by, I want to say, about maybe 2 inches, 2.5 inches, I forget. Here you can see some nice thick growth rings on this tree. When it was younger, it was growing like mad because it was at the edge of a field. I'm surprised I found no metal in it. And as it got older, started to get shaded in, and the growth rings get smaller and smaller. So the back is just, and this will be the bottom that you're looking at now, has got a little bit of spalting in it, but it's not really spalting. And that's why I chose it for the bottom. This slab had a lot of cracks in it from age and drying and whatnot. So you can see down here, these are some cracks. All of these I filled over a period of 2 years because epoxy and wood, as it dries and moves, can change. And I like to have everything dead flat on the top. So if I epoxy something, I come back 3 months later, that epoxy might be depressed a little bit, or it might have squeezed up because the wood squeezed shut and squeezed some of the epoxy out. This is the other end of the shot glass shelf. Now in here, this is going to look better in about 10 minutes or so. This will give you some idea of the depth. See how this drops way down? It's a pocket, and it's already been partially filled with epoxy. So you can see it looks kind of flat there, but there's a big depression underneath that epoxy. Goes through here. We're going to clean this all up in a minute. It'll look a lot better. Trust me. And this is a big pocket, and I would say the original depth of this pocket was probably somewhere around 1.75 inches, 2 inches deep in the center. So the theory on this was that we were going to make this, you have to picture this laying out. By the way, here, take a look at this. This is another, there's my finger. This crack looks like it just had to, fill it in. And that was that. But that crack, follow this crack, goes all the way up to here, almost all the way through. So it took me probably 3 weeks of off and on pouring to fill that crack in, and it would bubble down overnight before it cured, and I'd come out the next morning and it looked like I didn't pour anything in there. It was all gone. First time I expected to find it on the floor, that it leaked somewhere, but no, it was just finding its way in. So it took about 4 pours to fill that crack up, and on the last 1 or 2 I put in some coloring, because the plan is, I wish I could turn this camera sideways, so I just got to back up to get a longer shot. If you look at, picture this laying flat, or picture you on your back against the ceiling. This end over here is going to represent sort of a creek, that blue line coming in. And then this whole thing here is going to be a pond. It's got some features in it. There's some rocks in there. And then this area here is going to be the outfall, and then there'll be a little epoxy dyed waterfall going over the edge. So that's the plan. Now hang in with me. I'm going to reset this. I'm going to put the camera on pause, and I'm going to reset this camera so I can do some work while we talk a little bit. All right, hang on.